Hello, welcome to another episode of Namtaro Talks. You can already infer that the title of this episode might be somewhat polarizing. I would like to preface it by saying I am not calling out any particular fathers personally. I am not downplaying or dismissing fatherhood. And this episode, originally it was just to recap my relative first year of fatherhood. Though that window has relatively passed because he's getting slightly older and older, and I guess a more darker aspect of it kind of weighed in the back of my mind. Maybe dark is too strong of a word. Let's just say it's not the happiest aspect. It still warrants being addressed in my opinion. And maybe this episode is a bit cathartic or therapeutic. Maybe it's just to project my insecurities that I never resolved, that I might inadvertently project onto my child. But the way I see it, though I am not being 100% raw and open and exposing the world to all my personal business, I believe I'm in a position to disclose enough just to reflect upon. I guess growing up, pretty much your impression of what a father is based on your own father and how fathers are depicted, whether that depiction be in media such as books, movies, TV shows. And when I say fathers, I know that it may be somewhat of a touchy subject as not everybody has a direct blood father. I mean, they do, but not everyone has a relationship with it or with them or might know them or I'm that close with them personally. So I will expand the scope to father figures also. And out of respect for my own father, I will not disclose too much personal details. I will just share this. He did his best. He is why I am the way I am. And I only hope that he is proud. And the thing about fathers, well, from a media perspective, or like literature and books and movies and TV shows and stuff like that, it is a huge spectrum. I'm not going to start naming all the fictional fathers out there, but you can kind of tell certain personality types or archetypes. You got, I guess, Danny from Full House, Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince, or Ray from Everybody Loves Raymond. You got the animated ones like Peter Griffin, Homer Simpson. You got Tim from Home Improvement. You got the dad in Arthur, the dad in Daria. I'm just naming random fathers here and there. We don't really need to go into too much of example, but like I say, it goes on a huge range. You got the fathers who not really have it together, but they kind of are the moral compass or the glue or the calming, authoritative, masculine presence of the family. You have the fathers who are, I guess, chaotic to say the least. You have the fathers who are kind of laid back. The fathers who are proactive and super involved. The fathers who are understanding and emotionally supportive. The fathers who are authoritarian and have super high expectations. Like I say, it's a huge spectrum. There is no correct way. There is no one size fits all. Well, maybe there's a correct way, but there's a correct direction. And I know that the dynamic, it changes based on the family unit, like how it complements the mother, and of course the work-life balance and fatherhood. It kind of applies to how you approach the child at different phases in their lives and growth and stages of development. And I've repeated this many times, there are so many aspects to it. Of course, the physical presence, well, not just like manly and muscles and whatnot, but being physically there. And I mean, you admit it, usually the manual labor, the more heavy task in the household, and the driving, the role typically is delegated to the father. Of course, there is the financial responsibility, because you don't spend money only on yourself. You gotta help out not just the mother, but your children, who are your dependents. And it's not just feeding and clothing, but it's also leisure and cultivating interests. Yeah, all that takes money. I know money isn't everything, but it's helpful to have, especially when you're a father, especially when you have a family. So of course the question runs through your mind, am I making enough? Am I saving enough? Am I using it wisely? And I know that's a touchy subject, and I've made a couple other episodes talking about money already. But there's also the emotional aspect. You gotta find ways to bond and connect with your kids. Maybe it's being there for them during a hard time. Maybe it's sharing in one of their interests. Maybe it's sharing one of your interests. Maybe it's sharing an experience together, whether it be a trip or a vacation or an outing or the typical male thing like watching the game together. But a huge majority of it, it's being there, willing to give the rides, willing to help expand the kids' horizons, helping them explore, helping them see what's available out there. like my child right now. I'll just say it's my son. Yeah, I have a boy. He's still very young. He's not a blank slate, but he's developing. I know that he will have a personality gradually manifest throughout his lifetime. Like I say, okay, not really I say it, but I heard it before. You don't really provide the instruction, you provide the environment. It's like you don't tell them how to grow, but you give them like the tools or the dirt to build the garden or whatever. I heard a metaphor somewhere before. I'm probably saying it wrong. Yes, I know I mumble and I should open my mouth more. But like I said earlier, it's at the different stage of development. I mean, you're not going to develop a 1-year-old's character and morals and abstract thinking. You got to save that for later. But we always harken back to Maslow's pyramid scheme. I mean, hierarchy of needs, it's like a pyramid. So you address all of the basic needs first at the bottom, like the food and the water and the shelter. And eventually you go up the pyramid, you feel the fulfillment and the hobbies and the bonding and the interest. Then we know at the very top it's the self-actualization. Okay, I learned this pyramid in like 3 classes and I'm very sure I got that wrong. But you know the general idea. You gotta get the basics down first. But you can't just only cover the basics. You can't just only provide the food or provide the house. You gotta provide the environment for them to learn, explore, and not be scared, but at least a safe place to come back to as needed. And you want them to become upstanding people, moral people, people who care, people who want to do good, people who want to help. And I know I'm just generalizing, and truth be told, I had a relative outline, but I'm not even looking at it right now, so this is talking off the top of the dome. Yeah, but fatherhood, you know? I mean, as you get older, you see your friends become fathers, your cousins become fathers, people who you grew up who are around your age, now they're in different stages of their lives and they become fathers. And in my case, you become a father. And some friends and fathers you see more often than others. You see the different dynamics and relationships and interactions. You see what works and what you would incorporate, and you see what doesn't work or what's just not for you. You may even see things you don't agree with, but it's not really a judgment or an indictment on someone else's fatherhood, unless there's something that's super egregious, but it's not your place to say or point it out because you're not perfect either. Okay, when I say you, I mean me, and I know the pronouns go back and forth, but we're talking about fathers and fatherhood, but let's just go to the elephant in the room. Why did I name this episode Deadbeat Dad? I'm not sure where I first heard that term. It may have been in college where I was doing a skit for a culture show and I played the fatherly role. And of course that father role, he wasn't a deadbeat. He was supposed to be kind of comic relief, somewhat stern, and I just went along with it. I had no expectations or a model to follow. And the audience relatively enjoyed it. I guess there was a recurring joke that, oh, it's the deadbeat dad, deadbeat dad. And I was like, I'm not a deadbeat dad. What's a deadbeat dad? You can kind of, I didn't actively Google it or anything. So, well, just until now for this episode. But you can kind of tell it's a negative connotation. The deadbeat dad, it could be kind of for comedic relief, as you see in all the different media forms. He doesn't really understand or connect with his kids, or he's always off doing his own hobbies, or he doesn't want to do the chores, or he's insecure or has all the zany ideas, but deep down he has a good heart or comes from a good place. He just doesn't know how to best express it. And then there are the real deadbeat dads, like the ones who are abusive in various degrees, whether it be physical, emotional, financial, or the ones who were just absent, who weren't there, either by circumstances that were within his control or not. I would not hold it against them if it wasn't in their control, because they had no choice. They had to do the best with what they had. If it was in your control and you chose to pursue other vices, or if you were distracted, if you weren't fully engaged, then that would deserve the title of deadbeat dad. But it makes me kind of reflect upon my current fatherhood towards my son. I mean, he's young and I'm literally learning on the fly here, and every father is. And my motto is based on my own dad and the different friends who are fathers I see around me. Okay, the metaphor I typically use is back when I was in grad school, when if I did anything else that was not studying or preparing for class or preparing for the test, even if it's just taking a break, even if it's like relaxation or doing something else to get away from the atmosphere of school, at the very back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, I should be studying. Oh my God, I should be preparing. Oh my God, I need to pass this program because it helps determine the rest of my future. I admit that is not a 100% similar mindset, but loosely similar of my current position with fatherhood. Because at the back of my mind, I feel like, oh my God, I should be caring about my son more. I should be doing more stuff with my son. I should be engaged with him. I should look at him more. I should hang out with him more. I shouldn't be working so much. I shouldn't be checking all this other stuff online or looking at my past interests or even finding new interests and hobbies. I should be spending more money on my son. I'm not being fair to my wife. She's bearing more of the responsibility. She spends more time with him. She's more engaged with him. And a lot of this, okay, it is not a competition. We are a team. And I know a lot of it, I don't know if it's true or not, where I just have some kind of narrative in my head that I tell myself. It's kind of like the financial thing over again. Like, I know I can hold my own financially. I am fortunate in a position, at least currently anyways, to do so. I just keep telling myself, I suck with money and I'm poor. And it's not a good mindset to have. I know that. But I don't know how else to explain it. It's my nature. Maybe I was raised like that. Not that my parents raised me like that, but something I developed on my own over time. And unfortunately, that might be how I approach my own fatherhood. I know that I hold my own, that I contribute, that I have a place and a position, a role to play in the family. I have responsibilities, and I do uphold them to the best of my ability. It's like, what I'm doing, is it enough for a B, or is it really an A? But should I always strive for an A plus or get extra credit? Honestly, it makes me question many things. Like, why am I on the computer? Why am I thinking about what to make for my next Magic deck or the next time I get to play Magic? Why am I thinking about my investments? Why am I trying to schedule like more people for my job? Why am I taking so long to finish my job so I don't have less time to spend with my child? And then I see my wife hustling and preparing his food and willing to feed him. Honestly, I do that also, but truth be told, like, those tasks or most things with him, and I know most parents can relate, it's challenging at times. It's not the most fun. Stripping a crying kid so he can take a bath, feeding a fussy kid who literally knocked over his bowl of food all over the floor today. I mean, I don't hold that against him. He was being a baby, but in my head, a good father would just take it with a grin and bear it. There were times where I was a bit frustrated, not at him, not at being a father, at myself, that I didn't take it with more grace, more objectivity. And I know for fatherhood, I'm not putting on a show. I don't have to prove it to anyone else, but I gotta prove it to myself that I do care, that I do try, that I do love, and that it is appreciated. Because I don't want to just be around, Sometimes that's enough. But other times you need to be involved and engaged. And I admit sometimes it's challenging to find where you fit, how much involved you should be in a particular task or situation. And I know the dynamic of a father is different than that of a mother or of a grandparent or of an aunt and uncle. And grandparents, my son is lucky to have known both his maternal and paternal grandparents. But let's just say they're more expressive about it. Of course, they see him a lot less. But whenever they see him, it's like a big bundle of joy. And he's like the cutest and the best thing in the world. But that's the thing about me. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I know I care. I know I love. I know I'll share and give and sacrifice what I can. But he's my responsibility. I guess not a very good metaphor is that you go to someone's house and you see other people's dog and you're like, oh, what a cute dog. But when you realize how much it barks or how you have to clean up after it, how much the visits to the vet cost, how much attention the dog asks for, you're like, oh, okay, I'm glad that's not my dog. And I'm not saying my son is like a dog. Like I said, I don't know where these metaphors come from. Maybe I'm using the term wrong, but there's a difference between enjoying something with 1 degree of separation versus 2. Or 0 degrees versus 1. I admit, one story that it stuck with me even until now, even though we're past it. Well, I guess the parties involved are, and I have more than proven myself, but it's still at the back of my mind. Like, we're visiting my in-laws, and like my in-laws are giving my son all the attention, and like they're feeding him, and my wife's feeding him too. But I don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. I also want my in-laws to have as much time with him as possible. But then they told me, hey, take care of your baby. At the time, they were feeding him. But I'm like, it's not fully my place in this situation right now. The objective is for you to spend as much time with him, and you want to jump in there, you want to get involved. You're like preparing the food. You're the one who jumps to feeding him. Like, I feed him at home already. I feed him plenty, and I know for a fact I take care of him. Even though you don't see it, you don't know how much behind the scenes stuff. And even if it's not to take care of him directly, it's also the stuff to maintain the household, like keep it clean and find new furniture and keeping it homely and presentable and a nurturing environment. Because like I say, the nature of my job, I go into a fair amount of people's homes, and some of those people, they have kids or grandkids, but the home environment, it may not be the most kid friendly. It may be super messy or dirty or dark, and the kid, they see that every day, so they begin to internalize it. They say, oh, this is how a home should be. And I know I shouldn't, okay, maybe messy is not the best word, because every home with a kid is likely going to be messy. All the toys are strewn all over the place. Just going on a brief tangent right here. I recently interrupted this episode because I had to run upstairs because my son was crying. And his mom has a long day of work tomorrow. Though she was up and she was physically a lot closer to him in the bedroom, I took on the responsibility of just like rocking him to sleep, picking him up. I mean, I know which positions to hold him now. And I admit there are times when I'm the sleepy one and she's the one who does it. And she just tells me in the morning that she did it, but I didn't notice because I was asleep. That's an aspect of fatherhood. I guess kind of early during this stage in his life, there will be crying. There will be times when you are packing to go somewhere and you forget something important. There will be many times being woken up in the middle of the night. There will be times when you try 4 or 5 different solutions and try to address all the needs, but nothing seems to stick. And times where all you can literally do is wait it out. There will be trips to the doctor, maybe even the hospital. And I can kind of already tell in the future, there will be times where you wonder, why isn't he more like this or like that? Really giving him expectations. Feel like maybe you missed something. Maybe you didn't talk to him enough. Maybe you didn't spend enough time with him. Why is he misbehaving in public, or why is he withdrawn? Or even later in life, why is his moral character like this or like that? Why is he missing this aspect of character development? Did I don't know, have him in enough activities? Did I vet his circle of friends closely? Did I smother him too much, or did I let him loose too much? It's the kind of things that go through your mind. And sometimes when you make mistakes, you feel like an absolutely terrible father, because you know what the right thing to do was. It's so obvious, but sometimes you're stressed or forgetful and it just slips your mind, and you make a bad judgment and you have to deal with the consequences. And sometimes the consequences is the reputation or the label that you are temporarily given. Like, oh, it's the guy that forgets stuff, or it's the guy that gets angry and acts up. But I don't know about other fathers, but maybe sometimes we are a bit hard on ourselves. You can already infer from this episode that I am hard on myself. And sometimes, and I admit, forgetting the stuff, that really sucks. Whether it be like the diaper bag, or like the food for the outing, or the passport. I didn't forget the passport. I know someone who did, and I'm sure that person felt really bad. But it doesn't take away his ability as a father, because he tries his best. He compensates it and makes it up for many other ways. So I guess one moment or one lapse of judgment shouldn't define your entire fatherhood, unless it's really egregious or it was chronic. But that's a different story. But yeah, I mean, there's the stereotype of the father who just wants to do his own thing while the kids need to be taken care of or addressed. Or the kid's right there growing up in front of him, but he wants to do his hobbies, whether it's work on the hot rod, or watch the game, or play this or that game, or like Magic the Gathering. Okay, it's not always Magic, you know. Maybe it's like, I'm not saying it's like a nerdy hobby or a guy hobby. It could be board games. It could be Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes it's video games. And it's not like you're putting up a front to impress anybody. But fatherhood, you make it slightly easier and more foundational when you have structures and routine. And if you stray from that and it disrupts it, it affects your child. It affects your family. Financially, it could be if you made a bad trade or a bad investment. Physically, it could be if you let yourself go. You don't exercise enough, or you eat too much junk food. I guess at the end of the day, it comes down to enough. Like, did you do enough But enough, it's hard to define because what's enough for you might not be enough in the eyes of someone else or enough for your own child. I admit, I have friends and family members who have their kids in a whole bunch of extracurricular activities and take them on all these trips, even when they're super young. My son's young right now, like younger than most of their kids. And of course, he will be in certain extracurricular activities and learn certain skills. Of course, he will go on trips. But they say, like, quantity over quality. Those other people, they got both quantity and quality. But in my opinion, it's just do enough to expose them to it, to know what's out there, like what hobbies, what fields, what places, what people are out there. So it expands their worldview a little bit. So they're not just stuck in a bubble. But I'm not gonna take them to like 50 countries. I mean, I can't even go to 50 countries or play every instrument or try every sport. But at least give them a chance to check it out, to see it, to experience it, to know what it is, and definitely not force it upon them. The learning new languages, that might be a different story. Not forcing, but let's say a lot more nudging than the other skills because it's a valuable skill. Like I could hold my own in Vietnam. I was completely lost in China. I could get by in Japan because they got English signs and I mean just use whatever language you know from anime. But I guess some skills are kind of a non-negotiable or it would be really helpful to have, such as how to swim, how to engage in self-defense, at least coordinative enough for a sport, at least have the ear and the rhythm and the mental complexity to understand and appreciate music. Okay, now I'm really going on a tangent, but it goes back to the mentality of not really actually being a deadbeat dad, but telling yourself that you are, or I guess you have deadbeat moments, but nobody's perfect. I am far from perfect. I guess at the end of the day, as long as you're there, you care, and you're willing, and honestly willing, not just like a fake narrative, not just putting up a front, not just being all words, but you're about that action. You actually are willing. You do it. A deadbeat dad would not do or be any of those things. Okay, so I barely been a father for barely a year, so I guess if the episodes are short, that's understandable. And to be honest, I'm a bit tired. You can kind of tell that the episodes are a little choppy because there is a lot of pausing and continuing, but it saves me from a lot of editing. But I'm not going to pad the runtime, I believe I've said all I can about this topic at the current moment. And I admit, I feel slightly better. It's kind of cathartic. Maybe you listen to it, you can relate, or you can learn, or you're like, oh my god, look at this loser. Oh my god, what a deadbeat dad. I'm like, whatever. Those are your opinions. This episode's out there for you to consume, appreciate, whatever. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.